I still remember the exact sound the envelope made when it slid across the table. A soft scrape against polished wood. Casual, almost polite, like this was just another after-dinner formality. But it wasn't, not even close. Lena's father pushed it toward me with that tight, rehearsed smile of his, the kind that never quite reaches the eyes. "We think this is best for everyone," he said, folding his hands as if he were donating to a charity fundraiser. "You've had your fun, but our daughter deserves someone who can keep up." For a second, I just stared at it. I didn't reach for it. Didn't even blink. Across from me, Lena looked confused, her brows pulling together. "Dad, what is this?" she asked, her voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. Her mother leaned in quickly, smoothing over the moment like she always did. "It's not personal, sweetie," she said gently. "We just think it's time you outgrew fairy tales." Fairy tales. That's what they thought this was. My name is Ethan Shaw. I've been married to Lena for 3 years. To her, I'm the quiet guy who works a modest tech job. The one who prefers cheap coffee over $5 lattes. The guy who doesn't care about labels, who lives simply, keeps his head down, and avoids the spotlight. That's the version of me she's known. The version I let the world see. What she doesn't know, what her parents definitely don't know, is that I'm the silent co-founder of the very company where her father proudly sits as a director. And every major decision he's made in the last 5 years. It crossed my desk first. Every expansion, every restructure, every bold, visionary move he's taken credit for. I approved it quietly from the shadows. This dinner, I requested it. This table, I chose it. And that envelope, I expected it. Finally, I reached forward and picked it up. The paper felt thick, expensive, intentional. I opened it slowly, almost carefully, as if I were handling something fragile. Inside was a check, $500,000, $500,000. The memo line was blank, but the message was clear. "Walk away from Lena." I lifted my eyes. Her parents were watching me like investors evaluating a risky asset, already mapping out their daughter's future, already editing me out of it like I was a forgettable footnote in her story. I folded the check once, slipped it back into the envelope, then calmly pushed it across the table. Uncashed, unaccepted. Lena's gaze snapped between me and her parents. "What the hell is this?" she demanded, her voice sharper now. Her father didn't hesitate. "Security, sweetheart. This man, he's not your future. He's a phase." I saw it hit her. Like a slap she didn't see coming. Her shoulders stiffened. Her mother turned to me again. "Take the check," she said softly, but there was steel underneath. "Start over. We'll even help you relocate." Relocate. Like I was some intern finishing a seasonal contract. I let out a slow breath. Almost a laugh, but not quite. "Do you really think I married Lena for money?" I asked quietly. Her father leaned forward, elbows on the table. "I think people like you, who don't come from much, always find your way to women like my daughter." People like me. That phrase hung in the air. I smiled, not because it was funny, but because in that moment, I finally saw them clearly. Then I turned to Lena. My voice softened. "I didn't want to tell you like this," I said. "I never cared about impressing them. I only ever wanted you to love me for me." Her eyes searched mine. "What are you talking about?" Slowly, I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a business card. Black, minimal, clean. I slid it across the table toward her father. His eyes twitched the second he saw the logo. "Our company." I nodded once. "I've owned 49% of it since before you made director." The temperature in the room dropped. Not physically, but emotionally. The silence that followed was sharp. Surgical. Lena looked at me like her brain was trying to catch up to her heart. Like she didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or accuse me of something she couldn't name yet. Her father's face drained of color. "You're lying," he muttered. I raised an eyebrow. "Do you want me to recite the articles of incorporation? Or should I remind you who approved your recent bonus structure?" His mouth opened. Nothing came out. Lena picked up the card, turning it over like it might change if she blinked hard enough. "Wait, 49%. Her mother let out a brittle laugh. "That's not possible. What are you? A barista? A nobody?" I asked gently. "That's what you saw, because that's what I let you see." I looked back at Lena. I stayed quiet because I wanted one part of my life that wasn't defined by leverage. By money. By people who think love comes with a receipt. Her father finally found his voice again. "If this is true, then why come here at all?" I met his gaze evenly. "Because I wanted to see who you were when you thought I was beneath you." He stood abruptly, fists clenched at his sides. You humiliated us. No, I said calmly as I rose from my chair. You did that all by yourselves. Then I turned to Lena. Ready to go. We walked out of the restaurant without another word. The night air felt cooler than it had when we arrived. Heavier too. Lena didn't speak until we were halfway home, the city lights blurring past the windshield. You were going to keep this from me forever, she said finally. I glanced at her. No, but I wasn't going to tell you at dinner while your father tried to buy me off like a seasonal intern. She looked out the window. I don't know what to feel. Start with the truth, I said softly. You married a man who builds quietly. Who doesn't need to wear money to prove his worth. She was silent for a long time. Then, almost in a whisper, you let me believe we were struggling. We weren't, I admitted. I just wanted a real relationship. Not a performance. Later that night, her father called. Twice. I let both calls go to voicemail. Then came an email. One line. We need to talk. This affects the board. There it was. The realization. He had finally connected the dots. Because I didn't just co-own the company. I held the patent on the software that made their recent billion-dollar valuation possible. The backbone of their growth. The infrastructure they bragged about in investor calls. And unlike his inflated titles and polished LinkedIn headlines, my name was actually on the paperwork. They tried to erase me with a check. Now they were learning something important. Power doesn't always look loud, until it speaks. The next board meeting was scheduled for Thursday. I didn't RSVP. I didn't confirm. I simply showed up early. Not in a tailored suit. Not in a power tie. In the same gray sweater they used to mock when I picked Lena up from corporate events. I wanted them to recognize me. Not as a stranger, but as the man they tried to dismiss. The moment I stepped into the glass conference room, the energy shifted. Silence fell like a sudden pressure drop before a storm. Her father sat at the head of the table. Pale. Two directors whispered to each other. The legal advisor looked like he'd swallowed something that didn't sit right. I walked to the empty seat at the far end and sat down. Calm, unhurried. They waited for me to speak. I didn't. Instead, I opened my leather folder and placed a single document in front of me. The original founder agreement, signed by me, co-signed by the original investors. The document that proved my 49% stake. And more importantly, the veto rights clause her father had conveniently forgotten. The meeting began. They went through the motions. Financial summaries, market updates, strategic forecasts. Then came the vote. A major acquisition, one her father had already announced to shareholders with confident promises and bold projections. As the vote began, I calmly raised my hand. Vetoed. The word landed heavy. The room froze. I leaned back in my chair. Shall we talk now? Her father's jaw tightened. Ethan, this acquisition is strategic. We've already announced. You announced it, I corrected evenly. Without consulting a co-founder. Without a board vote. And definitely without checking clause 17.3. The legal advisor shifted uncomfortably. He knew I was right. One of the directors leaned forward. This puts us in breach of investor disclosure laws. I didn't smile. I wasn't here for revenge. I wasn't here to burn anything down. I was here to remind them that the man they tried to pay off was the same man who had protected this company's core infrastructure when they didn't even know what two-factor authentication was. I'm not trying to sink the ship, I said calmly. I'm trying to steer it. Her father's fists clenched again. You're making this personal. No, I replied. You did. The moment you slid that envelope across the table and tried to trade your daughter's life for your illusion of control. Silence filled the room again. Thick, heavy, unavoidable. Then one of the younger board members cleared his throat. Maybe it's time we stop treating Mr. Shaw like a threat, and start recognizing him as a partner. I stood slowly. Good, I said, because starting tomorrow, I'm not your silent partner anymore. I'm stepping into the light. Monday morning at exactly 9 a.m., the press release went live. Ethan Shaw named co-CEO of Linhart Global after strategic board restructure. Within minutes, my phone started lighting up. Former colleagues, college friends, even two of Lena's cousins who once joked that I'd married up. The narrative shifted fast. I wasn't just the quiet husband anymore. I was the man steering the company they all thought I had no place in. I walked into headquarters without a badge. The receptionist stood when she saw me step into the executive elevator. Her father was already inside. We didn't speak for 5 floors. Then he broke the silence. You think you've won? I kept my eyes forward. This was never a game. He scoffed. You humiliated me. I turned to him, calm as ever. No, you did that the moment you confused quiet with weakness. The elevator doors opened. I stepped out first. That day, I made 2 changes. I rehired the junior developer team he laid off last quarter just to make the budget look cleaner on paper. And I reassigned him to a non-voting advisory role. Still paid, still present, but no longer in the room when real decisions were made. He didn't argue, because he knew. The man he dismissed at dinner was now the one signing off on his parking spot. That evening, Lena met me on the rooftop. The same rooftop where we once talked about dreams bigger than rent and ramen. She leaned against the railing, the skyline stretching out in front of us. "You really never planned to tell me?" she asked softly. I stood beside her. "Not until I knew you loved me for the man. Not the name." She nodded slowly. "And now the name is mine," I said. "But the reason it means anything, is still you." She reached into her coat and pulled out the envelope from that dinner. Creased. Still sealed. "I never opened it," she said. "Didn't need to." I took it from her hands. Looked down at the offer her parents had written to erase me. Then I tore it in half. Not for drama, not for effect, but because it never mattered. "I'm sorry they saw you that way," she whispered. I looked at her, then back at the city lights reflecting off the glass of our company's high-rise. "They only saw what I let them see." She smiled faintly, still the quiet one. I shook my head. Not anymore. Behind us, the building glowed against the night sky. No longer just his. No longer hidden. I didn't need to shout to arrive. I just waited until the silence was mine to break.